Now, what is it that we can learn from the Native American stories? All their stories speak to that part of the individual that has nothing to do with the outside. Their stories are not about accomplishments in the world. Their stories are not about getting rich, becoming famous. A whole community, hundreds of tribes, independent ways of understanding life, unique languages, unique traditions, unique customs that have existed for thousands of years. And yet, there is not a single story that pushes individuals on the outside. All their stories point inward. That is the single biggest lesson. Yes, individual stories teach us something. But collectively, the whole culture is telling us that we are moving in the wrong direction. It is not that we can learn a few things from them. It is not that we can understand something more about life from them. What the Native American culture is showing is the totality of what we are searching for, the completeness of what we are missing. Most importantly, it is showing us the right direction. It is pointing us in the right direction. These stories can help an individual to find themselves. It is impossible to be misled by these stories because these stories were shared with great love, with great compassion. There is a beautiful Native American saying which says, "Walk gently. The land you live on is not an inheritance from your parents, but a loan that you have taken from your children." A culture that understood that it is not the past that has to be glorified, but the future that we have to be considerate towards. How we live, what we do matters to our children. And look at the modern world. We are living totally oblivious to the fact that we are passing on nothing to our children. We are so selfish, so greedy, so obsessed with ourselves that in none of our actions we have any consideration for our children. We are not thinking about the world that we are leaving for them because we have stopped caring. We have become self-obsessed, self-centered. We have become individuals in a totally wrong way. We have divided ourselves from everything around us, separated ourselves from everything, and that is where we recognize our individuality, when in fact the true meaning of individuality is to realize the totality of what you are, who you are. To become an individual is not a journey of separating yourself from the world. Is actually a way of realizing how much of what you recognize as world is you. and how much of what you do impacts the future generations. Every step you take, every breath you take leaves its impressions. What you do now affects your future generations, just like what the people have done before us is affecting us. All the rights are affecting us, all the wrongs are affecting us. We are living in a world that is deeply connected. Somewhere in one corner of the world, if one individual is sharing a few stories, stories that can help an individual find themselves, those stories will impact people somewhere far away. Because you can never say how far the influence of that story extends, especially in a world we live today. Something of value, if it is shared, it will pass. It will continue from generation to generation. But the problem is, there's not much sharing going on in the world. People are not gathering together to help each other out, to reflect on themselves, to reflect on the qualities that make them human, to understand the interconnectedness of the web of life. We are so busy doing something that we have totally forgotten that we are not passing on anything valuable to our children. And that is the beginning of the death of a civilization, of a community, of a people, when the younger generation have no clue as to what they should be doing here. The only reason the world is still a place where you can find a little bit of joy, a little bit of happiness, is because we still have our connection to the past. We still, at a certain level, revere our past. We try to go back and learn from our past, learn from the teachers, learn from the books, learn from the scriptures. Now, what happens when a day comes when an individual is so disconnected from the past, is so obsessed about accomplishing things in the world that they completely stop reflecting on the teachings of the past? What would happen to such a civilization? It would move in a totally wrong direction. It would go farther and farther away from home. Eventually, when an individual takes birth in that faraway land, totally removed from the stories of the earth, the fragrance of the earth, the spiritual reflections, the conversations, you can be certain that irrespective of how comfortable that individual has arranged his life on the outside, irrespective of how safe an environment that is, where you don't have to struggle for food, you don't have to struggle for basic comforts, you can be certain that individual will still be totally lost.